We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. I'm very excited for this new episode of Client Horror Stories and the long-awaited one. We've been trying to schedule this for a while with the one and only Angela Thomas. How are you doing this evening or morning?
Good
Angela?
morning, Whitney. Good morning and good evening to the time zone of Argentina. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, yeah, indeed, we had tried to schedule this for a while due to the time zones and the difference for us to understand. Yeah, it took a bit, but now here we are, and I'm very happy. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I have my coffee all ready this evening, and
I got my tea.
Your tea perfect for the Dubai morning.
Mhm.
And I am excited to hear about your craziest, most challenging client horror story. Take it
Yes.
away. The stage is yours.
Indeed, it is a very horror story and with so much learnings, and I'm trying to get this along on both of the levels. Um, but
Great.
you know, I'm since 30 years in business, I have so many client horror stories actually to tell. Some of them more horrific and than the others, but but this
But
one.
by the way, I just want to point out that sometimes I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I've been in business 30 years and I've never had a horror story. And
Oh,
I'm like, when people tell it to me, I'm like, either you're lying to me or you're lying to yourself.
haha. Or maybe they have never faced the real customer journey, isn't it? Maybe that too. But I think both of the first points that you had mentioned come most likely more into place. So with me, it was like that. I just wanted to line out the little journey that I took to lead even to be available for such a client horror story. So when I actually having my most of my entrepreneurship in Europe, and 3 years ago, I realized I wanted to leave Europe and entered to Dubai. And because the journey of me going from Germany to Dubai and the Swift that was not well, yeah, seen by the people, by my family. They didn't want me to go. Also, the entrepreneurs around me, they're just like, Angela, what you doing? I mean, you have such a good business. Why are you just leaving this out? I really wanted to work my Dubai business. And because of the Corona situation, the economy in Europe as such, especially in this case in Germany, was really downhill. And a lot of people left me out with, unpaid bills. And that was also a reason why I thought I wanted to, change the economy situation for myself and to enter into another target market. And because I want it to work so much in Dubai, I started to work actually with clients. I got quickly business and some bookings in my training courses. So I'm in the field of sales training, consulting, and so on. And I came across through a very good, well known, worldwide existing business entrepreneurship network. And you know how it is sometimes you just then leave the guard down because you are in such
Yes.
an environment. And that's what happened to me. And so it came that
Ooh.
one real estate agent came to me
But
and I
by
thought,
the way, before you actually tell us the story, this is a good yellow flag to notice, or that I don't think has come up in a previous episode, but it's good to give a bit of emphasis to it for our viewers, which is sometimes when you're in a space that is so safe, you
yeah,
assume, oh, this is a safe space, therefore
exactly.
they're in the
Yeah,
room, therefore they need to be like honest, great, good people. But
yeah.
guess what? Even safe spaces are infiltrated by not safe people all the time.
Yes, and it came to me very much later that exactly some of these people that are working with unhonesty, they are just seeking such places. So I went in this
Good,
network and
good
yeah,
point. Good point.
yeah,
If I were a criminal, I would want to go hang
yeah.
out in places where people are known for being particularly honest, because then they would never suspect me.
Exactly. That's what happened here. This
Mm,
person, a real estate agent, came to me. I was like, Angela, my real estate agents, they don't really close so much good. And I think it would be a good thing for you to go ahead. And he was asking me once, and the payment came through, and I trained some of their people just after my rule. Everything went fine. But the second time, I should have been suspicious. He came around, Angela, I have new training people and new sales agents, and they need to be trained. But this time there are many more, and we have to find a special condition. So I was like, okay, let me hear into it. And
wait, but
because yeah,
by the way, I also just want to observe before, I'm excited to see where this goes. But
yeah,
knowing that this person is going to turn out to be sketchy, it's interesting that he started with a small thing that was honest and good before moving to the sketchy one. And I remember long, long ago, I read a book about how scammers operate, and something I learned from this ancient book is that scammers often start out by doing something that's small and honest, just so that
gain
that
trust.
you'll
Yeah.
believe them and gain trust.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's what happened here. And so I went into it because, I had this need. I wanted to prove also all the back people in Europe, my Dubai journey is really
Yeah.
good working. And so I went with the second offer and we negotiated back and forth. It was 10 people that I trained. And he said, well, I can give you some little amount for this, like kind basic, but if you are so good, like you say you would be, then why don't you work for, a profession? And that would be very good for you. And I said, okay, what
Why don't you
kind
work
of,
for a wait for a profession?
no,
Like
commission. I'm sorry,
a
wrong word.
commission. Sorry.
Commission.
I got yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
sorry. My bad. My bad. Yeah, for a commission. And that's when I agreed for that. And I built it up these people very good. I had so much fun with them. There was predominantly Indians, Pakistanians, which also was not in such a good place. And I know their need to make a deal because
Right.
their only journey was gaining money when they close because they had also this commission model.
By the
Yeah.
way, I also want to point out that the yellow flags are starting to pile up here, and I also want to call attention to for our viewers the yellow flag of being paid on commission. And this is something I didn't realize when I was younger, also. And the way I would summarize the reason why it's a yellow flag is if someone is not willing to invest hard cash money in you, that's a sign that they're not really serious about you and saying, oh no, I'll pay you a percentage of something in the future, some sort of commission, means they don't want to give you hard cash now, which means they are not serious about you. So, which is the reason why, in my experience, when often commissions are part of a compensation package, that when they're a small portion of your compensation package, that is fine, you get some upside. But when your compensation package is largely commission,
Mm.
that means they're putting up very little, which is like the higher the commission as a percentage of your compensation package, then the higher the risk it is for you.
Yes, that is indeed the case. But I was so convinced, I am still convinced about what I am able to do. But the need for me to showcase it to others, my ego totally kicked in. I really wanted to have also somebody. out of a different industry because I used to be in the beauty industry, and there was this, these people was like, okay, you're just doing nails and stuff, although I had already my life achievement and so on, a good career. However, I went with these people and I trained them, and they were so cute. Also, they were so grateful, basically, those agents. They said, we really learned so much with you. And yeah, then it came to actually the situation where they have also no kind of structure in their business. So I set up a structure as well, just for me to track how they can make deals, because I know it was also my money in the end. And yeah,
Another yellow flag. They didn't
yeah,
have any structure, any way to track it
nothing.
at all. Like,
Yeah,
how can the company not
I know.
set that up?
Yeah. And so I must be honest, subconsciously,
Yeah,
I know already something is fishy, but my ego was so loud. My
yeah.
logical mind, it was so loud. I cannot opt out. He's in that network. Everybody will talk about it, and so and so on. I went ahead. And it came to this point where I had my regular trainings with these agents, and it was close to have a deal. So we had acquired these people for real estate. Real estate is so big in Dubai, and they set it the appointment. I observed the calls. They was very good, and now it came to the point where they had to meet the client to make actually the deal close. And here it comes. I never was allowed to go with the client because it's also something like with the license and so on. I think if I would have pushed, then I could have observed, but it just, I
Wait, wait,
was
wait.
just,
So wait. To be clear, what you're saying is they were selling basically, there was something like real estate agents, and
yes,
because you don't have a real estate license in Dubai, they said that you couldn't attend the actual real life sales meeting. Is that right?
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow,
So,
that's, by the way, the yellow flags are piling up here.
yeah,
You can't
exactly.
attend. You can't
Yeah, it's
attend
a
a
bullshit.
meeting.
I know. It's a very bullshit. Yeah.
You
But
were
so,
you were you were too excited.
yeah, I was so excited. And I was even, from remote, from my back end, I was supporting them, writing them messages. Hey, you're going to make it. Think about objection handling. Think about that,
Yeah.
strengthen my students. I was really into it for them. And then the next day, I was actually asking, how it went, and what was the outcome of it. And I said, oh, we was not allowed to go ourselves. Mr. XYZ, the boss of it, said he has to take the deal because we would not be good enough yet. And I was like, oh, how is that going on? So yeah, I was following up on
Ooh.
those deals that been closed by the actually CEO of the company. And yeah, and he said there was not a closing because we have, or the agents that was trained by me was not good enough trained, and therefore the client was not prepared enough to close, and that's why he didn't close the deal. And I was in the beginning, all right, let's train a little more,
What?
motivating my students.
Dig deeper.
Yeah, dig deeper. Yeah. However, we did that 3, 4 times. It
Wait,
happens. And then I
wait,
was like,
by the way, I want to explain my joke for the viewers. It might be useful for them, which is the following, because I'm assuming our viewers can't read my mind, which is one of my favorite sayings about life in general. And like, I use it all the time in business, but I think it applies more broadly than business, is an old forgotten piece of wisdom, but I think it's fantastic, which is this: when you are stuck at the bottom of a hole, the first thing you do is you stop digging. And
wow, that
I
is a
love
good
this saying. It's
one.
really, really powerful, because what happens all the time, you're in the middle of a terrible problem, but you're actually causing the problem. But because you don't realize it, the thing that you think is naturally what you think, oh, I should train them more. Your natural human instinct is to just, no, I'm continuing, I'm digging. The problem is something else. Let me continue digging to stop following
Yeah.
it. No, you're stuck at the bottom of a hole. Stop digging as the first thing you do so you can think clearly about how
Yeah.
to get out of the hole.
And that's what I did not. Instead of I was, taking on the load, searching inside me, okay, where can we go and be a bit better? And one day I felt my students was very unmotivated and sad and not really attention. They didn't put up the attention, the enthusiastic. And I was like, what is actually going on? And yeah, they was, holding back something. We was in this office and I was like, okay, let's go for a coffee. I wanted to get them out of the environment. I sincerely felt there was something wrong that I could not get out of them in this environment. So I took them, wanted to take them to coffee, and they said, well, Miss Thomas, unfortunately, we cannot go with you to a coffee because we literally do not have any money for a coffee. And I say, out of here, I'm paying the coffee. So those poor Indian, Pakistani people was left out totally. I was already sensing totally out of with anything. They did not even had a dime in their pocket for a coffee. So I went there, sat them down, had the coffee with them, paid for the coffee myself. However, and then they just actually spit out what was on their mind, and they said to me, all of our deals that we prepared was taken away by Mr. XYZ, and he was saying we not preparing it good enough for him to close, and all the time he comes back without closing. And one of them said, but we discovered he lately opened up another company. And I was like, yeah, what that has to do? Yeah, it's also a real estate company, but it's on the name of his wife. And for that, he closed all the deals in the company of the wife. So he had to pay none of them any commission, not me, not the real estate agents. And he made a very,
I see. So what happened is, by him going himself and closing it under a different company name, since
yeah,
it's not technically the same company that the Indians and Pakistani guys and girls sent the leads to, then he said, oh, therefore I don't need to pay the commission.
yeah,
And so he could wiggle out
yeah.
of paying the commissions.
Exactly. So, and what here happened then, I was jumping for all my
What an
students because
asshole. Sorry.
what an
Sorry.
asshole. Yeah. But here it
Sorry for,
comes. Here it
oh,
comes. We just we just tapped our hands, and I was like, hey, because when something happens with that and Angela Thomas is involved, I'm mutating to John Dark and I'm jumping behind all of my students in the water to save them. And nobody really know about what I did a year before. I was actually in the organization from the government. This called MORE. It's an organization for labor law, and that I was in an award situation in a jury to assess.
is this in, so you're in a
In,
labor law government organization? Is this in Dubai or in Germany?
yes, no, 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 in Dubai,
Still in
and
Dubai. Okay.
yeah, I was called in this committee to assess people how good of an job they do with their laborers and with their employees and so on. And I got my connections there. I brought all these real estate agents to this organization, and I said,
Wow.
you are claiming a case here. I made them to claim a case. And so with that, they had to actually a very labor law here in Dubai is very tough, and it comes to deportation if it's just actually mistaken. And so they filed
Wow.
all of a case, and they had to get money of 3 months work, basic salary they have also not gotten, and also the commission they had to file. Yeah, it was 10 people who filed a case, so this guy was actually, yeah, quite challenged financially
Wow.
to make
Oh
this.
my
And
goodness. I did
yeah,
not see this twist coming. This is
yeah,
this is so exciting. So what happened?
yeah. So they went to the More department, which is the labor department, and they filed their case. And when this happens, actually they investigate short time, but they are very on the case of an employee. And so they made actually summed up everything. They reviewed the contract. And so they actually claimed this person, this XYZ CEO, that he has to pay every of these person their money. So it was not the full commission, but they had to have some compensation. But with 10 people in line, it really piled up to a point where he actually even got taken away his real estate license. So because
Wow.
he could not pay the money all in full in once, but in the end, I know all of these real estate agents got the money, but Miss Angela Thomas, she was just third party. She was just left out.
And this is such a typical Angela Thomas story. You're always helping everyone else, but you're not the one making the money yourself. It's one of the challenges of being
Yeah.
Angela Thomas, I predict.
Yeah. Yes, this is indeed like that. But if I can enlarge the story a little bit about the
Wow.
perspective,
Go for it.
I yeah, just to make the story round, I got actually very doubtful with my own entrepreneurship. What subconsciously was actually happened with me, because that is a very good learning for everybody who's dealing with scamming. I was actually only looking for the money that was not there. So I was permanently in contraction for my whole entire business here. I just dropped down the energy. It's about reflection and frequency. You get what you pour in, and I
Yes.
only poured in like this person owes me something. Then I attracted another person who owes me something. So I had major fail outs from Germany and major payment fail outs in Dubai. And yeah, you know what expensive city Dubai is. So I first time in my whole 30 years entrepreneur life, I doubted my first time being a good entrepreneur. However, I even had to change my apartment. I used to live on a beautiful palm with a nice
Ooh.
beach. I really had to change location because of my financial situation. And I was in this first time of my doubtful situation thinking I have to look for a job. And here, Morgan, is something really hard to learn for everybody, interesting, because I had such a low frequency. I had actually this doubt in me to be an entrepreneur. I applied in 187. I sent 187 job applications, and I got only three feedbacks. Two was a denial, and one said, "Yes, we'll take you, but we want you to make something online, yeah, at home." And so I thought it was something kind of okay that could be somehow done. And per se, to make a long story short, it was also a job scam. So, on top of all of the loss, I sanded out all this frequency that started in that contract and attracted a job scammer. I was so ashamed. I was sitting there finally on Christmas, barely had anything to eat, could not get my children into Dubai. I was really reflecting myself, and somehow it just really, went downwards. And all of these real estate agents, I called some of them on the situation where I had to switch my apartment really rapidly. Also, I could not find any real estate that was good. Everybody was jumping for me, behind me in the water, and helped me to find a real estate, an apartment, and even got in their Indian language with the landlord, because it was also Indian, a very good deal that I only have to pay a deposit, and after 3 months the full rent. So that was a really good help on that note, because in Dubai you have
Wow.
to,
So
yeah,
oh,
you
with
have to
the
pay the full amount rent for 1 year in advance. And if that was if that was not the case, and those girls had jumped for me in the water, then maybe you would have slept under the Shakeside Road.
wow. So I love what happened next. I think I appreciate your comments that you yourself were on a lower frequency, and I
Yeah.
think in that same sort of vein, in the karmic universe, you gave out such good karma helping them that it came back and they realized it and they went all out to help you.
Yeah, yeah. But what is so important for me to learn in that story is all about frequency. And that is something, you have in business so many technical things to do. Yeah, I even have a paper that I give out, the 7 reasons of stagnation. But there's one thing that somebody not talks about it. It's about this frequency. It's the eighth element, I'm calling it. It's what you send out is coming back definitely. And it happened to me so much. I had to get to this journey to actually be wiser today. So I'm very grateful. And I'm saying actually to myself, not the scammer on none of these places were the faulty ones. They just gave me a lesson that I had to learn actually to dig deeper, as you said once, and then stay to my subconscious, to my gut feeling really truthful, and not override it by logical things and all this ego situation. And that's something that I see in so many entrepreneurs. What you send out, you're getting back. And that is such a strong reminder for everybody. I think everybody can learn something from it and realize it and reflect it. And nobody is too stupid to be scammed. I'm telling you, a lot of people are actually feeling, shameful because of being scammed. And that emotion came arise in me in the first state too. But I'm not blaming the scammer. I'm just blaming myself, even if you can call it blame. But I'm just thinking I was only emotionally available enough for this had happened to me, be possible happened to me in both of the scamming cases. So that is actually the big learning that I had out of it.
Wow. So a few comments. One, on your observation that no one is too stupid that they can't be scammed. I want to point out, I think a lot of people would point out, you have even entire societies and countries and nations being scammed at the huge level, which is
Yeah.
regardless of what your or who anyone's political views are. Basically, you would always believe that all the good people who have the opposite political view, they're like being scammed and taken advantage. No, he's such a good person. How could he be supporting these
Yeah.
terrible policies? And that's basically a society level scam that gets 50% of the population to support the bad politicians, effectively scamming them and taking advantage of them. So, second point I want to make is I have a question which is more learning for me, which is I grew up a math science nerd, and while I do believe in the power of karma 1000%, I've never explored my own spiritual side to really understand at a deep level being on a lower frequency or lowering a frequency. So I'm curious to understand what that actually means, also applied to yourself, because I think you're saying that one of the reasons why this happened to you is because you yourself were on a lower frequency and now you've
Yeah.
moved to a higher frequency. And I think I understand, but I may not really understand what that means. So please teach me and all of our math science nerdy viewers about that.
You will love it as a mad science person. And I'm bringing on this stage out all the time in my training courses the scale of consciousness. Do you know this? There's a scale of consciousness and it comes with frequencies, basically. The emotion of love has another frequency than the emotion of anger, fear, angst. And this is all something that
Well, but
is,
I just have a very naive question. When you
yeah,
say I understand I understand the words that
yeah,
love has a higher frequency than angst, for example. So like some I understand that some emotions are more positive, that love is a positive emotion than angst or anger are
yeah.
negative emotions. But what is it? So I understand that it's more positive, but what does it mean that it's at a higher frequency? I'm
Your
sorry.
vibration. Yeah.
I'm very naive on these spiritual
No
ways.
problem. I'm very grateful for you asking these questions because it gives me so much opportunity to explain deeper, and I somehow did not
I'm
know how
curious.
deep I can dive. Yeah, if you have the scale of
Keep
consciousness, is
keep digging.
Hey, thank you. Yes, it could have been for me. You're very good. Yeah, so the scale of consciousness is actually a scale in which you can measure the frequency of your emotions. And frequency are measured in hertz. I think it's called in hertz. The frequency, how do you
Hertz.
call this in English?
Ah,
Yeah,
hertz.
hertz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And every of our emotions sends out a frequency. So frequency of angst has something different, a frequency very low. I believe, when I'm be right, it's about 170. I don't have the chart in front of me, but frequency of love and gratitude is about 750, about this, so high.
So I want to interrupt just to be clear to make sure I understand, because I'm really new to these things, but I find it very interesting, and
Yeah.
I want to learn, and it seems central to the key teaching, which is when you say emotions emit a frequency at a particular band of hertz, is what you're saying like right now there are all these signals coming into the room here that are like Wi-Fi signals at a particular hertz level, but you're saying just like there's like the Wi-Fi signals coming in there, that my body is letting out love signal, but it's not at the Wi-Fi band, it's at some other hertz band, and my body's letting out an anger hurt free anger frequency at the same time, and you can like just measure the frequencies just like you can measure the Wi-Fi frequency.
Exactly. Yeah, you can do this. A lot of people do this nowadays with water. They frequency their water with music, binaural beats. And this is also a frequency in which you are at.
Neural beats.
Yes. Yeah, these are
Okay.
some sounds like the Schumann frequency, you call this, is actually a sound to get concentrated. I often hear in the background music like that, just frequency of this specific music that you can concentrate, gather your thoughts and all of this. And same frequency our emotions have.
I have read about the Japanese guy that would like scream out water and freeze it.
Yeah.
Is that
Yes. Exactly. That's the point. That's the point, actually. Yeah.
for
And
for viewers not watching? I did read at some point about some Japanese academic who would like scream out water and then freeze it, and then he would also like bless water and then also freeze it, and then once frozen he would look at the water crystals under a microscope, and the ones where he was saying positive things to the water had like very beautiful frozen patterns, and while the water he screamed at had very ugly unsymmetrical patterns.
yes, exactly. That's the case. And so it is with our frequency that we actually have when you have different emotions. Did you ever realize when you come sometimes in a room and there has been just an argument or a disagreement, without anybody saying it, somehow you sense it?
You feel it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
And exactly that's what you do with your frequency as an entrepreneur in that behavior. If you operate from a point out of contraction, I need to have this deal, I need to have this money, I'm lacking money. You only actually, under this pattern, you send out a frequency of fear, angst, and all this low vibrating that addresses to your opposite, and immediately they put up their guard, and it's like, no, I don't know, because our Olympic system is working like that. There is a barrier that we do not overcross, and people who doesn't have to deal with their ego in that point and listen to their gut feeling, they immediately be always on the right side. Your gut feeling is the strongest actually decision maker that you should listen to, not your logical mind. The logical mind is only to gather information, but not to make decisions. And yeah, out of this, I can say in that situation, I only send out a frequency of fear, contraction. I need to have this money. I don't have enough money. That's and a very strong frequency that you have. Fear to lose even my apartment, which had happened then in the end, anyway. Self-fulfilling prophecies, uh,
Prophecy.
how you, yeah, prophecy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. So, and all of this, it happens through frequency. I'm strong believing that, because after that I changed all and everything around. I went into, because a lot of people, they think, how I'm gonna change this? If I need the money, I need the money. How can I change my frequency? Yeah, these thoughts I had as well. And I thought, like, to myself, just listen how to get now out of this frequency. And I found for myself a very good way. It's about being grateful, because being grateful has the highest frequency. Love and being grateful is even much more higher in the frequency. So whenever I'm in an anger situation, being angry somehow, I try as fast as I can to put myself into a situation where I point to what I am grateful at. And that helps me to shift my frequency totally. And here I go, 8 months later. I'm not saying this to brag, but to say what big of a shift it is from a little small apartment with my dog who's crying in the back, if you hear that, guys, and nothing, almost nothing in my pocket. I could actually already make an 2 million revenue. 2 million dirham is about it's about $500,000 revenue in this 8 months. I was able to embody my children twice already this year, and I can flourish my business and employ people to actually start very good here. And this happened only because I really went deep into this. I was 1 month in December, barely, really, I did not know how I survived with 800 dirhams, which is about $200 for a whole month in Dubai. I'm really grateful nowadays that I'm able to book a taxi with Uber, because I would not be able to book a taxi with Uber at this time, because I really had to manage the last leftover money at this stage. And that brought me into a situation where I went all the time into a position of what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that this happens to me because I came to my senses. I do not have to apply for a job because I've been entrepreneur all my life. What am I looking for in employment now? And I'm grateful for having an apartment. I was grateful for the people who helped me to negotiate with the Indian landlord. I started to be grateful, and it was like magic, Morgan. It was like really magic. With that, I made my first calls with my to-be clients, and it was coming, closings was coming. And my clients say to me today, we're so grateful for you. And that fills up your tank as well, out of the point of frequency. It's such a beautiful thing and such a beautiful perspective. And yeah, that's also something that I a long time didn't dare to bring together spirituality and business, because I thought, like, they think I'm a little bit cuckoo when I'm starting to talk about frequencies like you ask now. But it's such a pleasure for me to explain and to educate people that it has something to do with frequency. Even if you just be in a simple sales talk about anything, it has something to do with frequency.
So all that is interesting. I think for me personally, I've for a long time, since forever, agreed with and thought about these same concepts. I just never thought about it in the literal energy way. So like I've always thought you can go into a room and you can tell if they're fighting, or you go into a negotiation, you can tell if they're feeling scared or desperate. Like
Yes.
they say in English, you can smell desperation. So
Yes.
so what's interesting is I've always thought about that metaphorically, and I never thought about how that works. I never asked myself, how is it that I can smell desperation? And I think what's interesting is you're providing a mechanism to answer that. You're saying you can smell desperation because just like the Wi-Fi router lets out the signal at a certain frequency, that the desperate person is letting out the desperation energy on this band, and I'm just attuned to receive that.
Yeah. Another good point that I'm doing always with my children as well for years already, but it came to me in this situation because I left it myself a little bit out and didn't practice it. My children always had to write down 5 good things that happen at each day, because sometimes, even if you are in entrepreneurship, you don't realize what you have done. Do you know these days when you just think, I was so busy and occupied today by what I have
Yeah.
really done? And to write this down just also brings you in a emotion, in a frequency of gratefulness, because you just put a magnifier on what you did good, not what didn't went good or what you have to learn. And even those things that we rate as are not good, they are still very good for us to learn from, just like this happened to me. Being scammed
There's
twice.
there's an early 20th century American writer from Baltimore named G.K. Chesterton,
Uh-huh.
and he has many interesting insights, and one of them is, he said, the test of all happiness is gratitude. And
Yes.
I actually think that's a useful way of thinking about it, and it's consistent with what you're saying. Okay, is this person happy or not? I actually think that, well, how grateful are they is a very good and objective test. Like, of all the as a math science guy, of all the words they say, what percentage of all words that you say out loud are words of gratitude towards others? So, like, in a way, you can kind of measure these sort of, oh yeah, he's always expressing this deep gratitude to everyone and everything, but that person over there never is. I know which one I think is happier.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, the person with gratitude will also spread more happiness around. Here in Dubai, there is even a real estate. Looking at the real estate market now, very different, and they have they have actually a project that they built in a setup where the frequency is so high. They built up these music pipelines around the water system, so the water is having a frequency. They even shield
Oh
some,
wow, that's
yeah,
cool.
they shield some specific areas in the real estate away from Wi-Fi and all kind of these electric smogs and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think it's very underrated to have this frequency. And a lot of people, they do
Wow.
this affirmation and manifestation, but they do it out of a position of need and contraction. And that's when it never happens. And then it comes out, people say manifesting, it's just something cookie, with
But
boo.
wow, by the way, I think it's incredible. I'd never heard this before, that Dubai is like piping music with healthy frequencies
Yes,
into water and shielding other areas from Wi-Fi. That's taking this good energy things to another level. This is a way of beautifying a city and making a
it
place
is.
attractive to people that I never imagined would existed.
Yeah. And in this house, they have even a library, over 1,000 books. The architect has actually asked very renowned entrepreneurs all over the world of if they had actually the last day on Earth and had to enter to the moon and they have to leave. So, what book would they take with them? And they only allowed to take one book. And their suggestions had actually brought the books into this library. So 1,000 people's last and
Wow.
only book that they would take are in this library. Yeah.
Wow. That, by the way, I that's an interesting question, and also I love the idea of asking this to lots of entrepreneurs and taking their answers and filling a library with those books.
Yes, it is very
What
beautiful. And yeah.
what would be your answer to that question?
Actually, the 7 reasons of stagnation. Oh no, sorry. That's my book. No,
The one and
no, no,
only
no.
book you need
Yeah.
on the moon to save civilization is your book.
Yeah, so you see how I'm patterned.
I'm
I just popped out
I'm
of my
it's
mouth.
nice to meet you, Jesus.
You have some reasons for stagnation, just no. Oh, I love books so much. I really have to think about what is a good question. But what probably really, yeah, formed me, what book formed me really is Seven Ways of Effectivity from Stephen R. Covey. That is
Yeah.
actually a book I have still today, and I read sometimes even again in it.
Yes, a classic. Yes, a classic book. I think
Yeah.
my answer to that question would be Julian Jaynes' book, Are the Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind.
Oh, I didn't know that. You have to
No,
send it to me.
it's he was a professor at Yale of psychiatry in the 70s, and he came up with this crazy theory of what consciousness is that is actually very consistent with the sorts of ideas that you're getting at, um, as,
Ah,
uh, as well. So it has this like deep and powerful book. It's actually the most influential book that I've read to help me understand the world in the last 15 years. But it's not just, is it just full of layers and layers of insight about humanity and consciousness and how we live. But this professor was basically a poet that then became like this genius psychiatrist. But because he's like a poet, it's written in this beautiful and intense way. It's like the exact opposite of reading an academic textbook. And it's
yeah.
without a doubt the most important book that I've read in the last 15 years.
Very good. I have to get into it. I have to dig deeper to
That's
find out. Yeah.
and
So,
and with that, it's as we start to wrap up, any other thoughts or comments that you want to share, or advice or wisdom you want to pass on as some final words?
yes, I mean, you really have to, yeah, look at yourself before you blame others when something happens to you. So, also, that has something to do with frequency. To put yourself as a victim, it doesn't help you anyhow. Try to reflect yourself. If you cannot see your own shadows by yourself, take somebody that helps you to, yeah, to get this all together and to reflect the blind spots with you. But it's much, and not as a punishment of life things happen to you, but it is about a very beautiful lesson. And we all chose this life when we came here, and we chose to learn these beautiful lessons, and that's what's life about. And the most important thing also to find a way out, not to stagnate in these situations and dawn about it, then it's not getting any better. But to just reflect, learn from it, and move on. And that's what you call resilience, and that's entrepreneurship and life in total. Yeah, if I hear people that they say it's the fault of XYZ, I really smile inside myself, because I'm reflecting this person has so much to learn, even though the scammer's fault is the scammer's fault, it is just still my responsibility to let this in my life. So that's what I actually can give everybody on their path, to just search inside you and dig deeper in finding out what lesson holds this happening to you, whatever it is. Yeah.
Those are beautiful and elegant and eloquent words, and perfect to end our podcast on. This has been fun. I really enjoyed the interview, especially the spiritual twist that it took for the second half, and also all the twists and turns in the story itself. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Morgan, and I'm really
And
blessed to see how your audience is taking the podcast and likes it.
hopefully, and audience, to all of you who've made it to the end, thank you for watching, and we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we had. Until next time.
Until next time.